Welcome to the Hard-Won Wisdom Podcast with best-selling author Fawn Germer and corporate innovator Michelle Brigman. Come here weekly for career and life-changing conversations with some of today's most influential thought leaders, senior executives, and trailblazers who will share their mentoring wisdom. This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Leadership Network.
Hi, I'm Fawn Germer.
And I'm Michelle Brigman.
And this is what remains of the Hard-Won Wisdom podcast. We are here to tell you what happened to us because all our friends want to know, hey, what's going on with you and Michelle? Because they want the scoop.
Because there's tea. There's
right,
tea.
There's tea. Like there was this big fight and they want to know the details of how we hate each other. And we don't hate each other at all. We talk all the time. We are doing this podcast all the time, but we don't invite you to join us because we don't record it. We just yak on the phone because both of us are kind of in transition in our lives. And we kept prioritizing that we needed to do the podcast and figure out what we were doing. And we'd make appointments, didn't we? We made a point, like kept saying, okay, we're going to discuss the podcast. And then we'd get on there and we'd talk about what we were going to order online or Michelle's love life or,
or your
nothing.
love life.
My love life. And we just didn't do it. And it's the end of the year. And you, our faithful listeners, are wondering what happened. Okay, we don't hate each other. First things first, we love each other more today than yesterday and the day before. It's just this growing, wonderful, unbelievable friendship. And we love the podcast, but we aren't sure what we want to do with it because we're both kind of growing in two really different directions right now. And so we thought we would just hook up with y'all and let you in on it so you can be part of this growth moment because you all have your growth moments. But Michelle, what's been going on with you this year?
Okay, big things. So I had the marathon divorce that was finally final.
Did you all hear that? Her divorce was finalized.
Finally, and I was actually with Fawn whenever the papers were finally signed. So that was kind of a cool experience.
That was great. We were at the spa here in Florida at Safety Harbor Spa. We walked out and Michelle checked her emails and she looked at me and she goes, I'm divorced. And all I could say was mazel tov. Because I don't know how far you're going to go into it. I'm just
scratching the surface. We're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, she doesn't give all the scoop, but I tried to give the other individual in that relationship a lot of grace and be understanding of how it took so long for Michelle to get to that point where she actually went through with it.
So that was big. And that was, just redefining yourself after something like that. So that was a big part of that transition, even though we'd been separated for, it was like 3 years to the day. So it was a long time, but you're still kind of on that both sides of the fence. So really being able to rediscover who I am, what do I want? How does this look? So it was a really healing year for me. Hard, but healing. Also, just really gone through this whole rebranding with my business. What am I doing? Getting clarity with that because I just want my heart. I just want this all to work really well. So, trying to figure that out. And then also making sure my kids are taken care of. My youngest, she actually graduates from high school this week. So she's graduating, early and excited for her and trying to help her fly. And, my son is starting a new chapter in his life. He's older. And so just a lot going on, like beautiful things. But those things were getting a lot of my attention as we were trying to go through this rediscovery. And like Fawn said, right? What is it? Well, our agreement was when we started this podcast, it wasn't about the followers and it wasn't about any of that. It was about, we've got to have fun. And there came a point where so much other stuff, it was hard to sort of pour our energy into this. We were having fun talking, but like bringing everybody else into it, it was just in a weird time. So I think we're both excited to be able to reconnect with everybody today.
Yeah, today, just so that they know
Today.
we don't hate each other. So Michelle's got these 2 great kids. They're beautiful. They are beautiful.
Awesome.
How old is Logan now?
25.
Oh,
He's met,
man,
he might be the girl.
he's a beautiful man. And then Brenda, she is so talented and gorgeous, and she's going to launch. And hopefully, I've told her that I expect when she's the next Taylor Swift that she'll take care of me when I'm in my Depends. She says she will, but I haven't got it.
What would she takes care of?
Yeah. No, so the kids are important, but you've also been dating.
Yeah, I'm going through the dating experience, the online dating, what I started out as a fake date, reconnecting with a friend, and then just having somebody to kind of explore and learn what is it that's important to me? What do I want? That's been very insightful. But also I'd say too, just dating myself. And that's been that's been probably the biggest thing. And I love it.
Yeah. Boy, me too.
And you're just such a good example of that too. So
Yeah. But it's been interesting listening as you've been going through that process, because now you are learning that you matter in a relationship, and to let the other give to you, which is a big deal now.
that's a big deal for me.
Big change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I haven't known how to receive. I was taking care of everybody else. So that's been a big thing. And that's one of the things that I think back to my kids, their support and encouragement and like validation of, oh my gosh, this is exactly what you need. And this is good for you. And so that has been awesome, because you then, it's funny. You'll put up with a lot. And sometimes, your friends can tell you things.
You put up with a lot.
Oh, yeah. I'm off the charts on this. It's funny because you and I talk about this a lot. If we were talking about my career, none of the stuff I've gone through would have ever happened. But whenever it gets into an intimate relationship, I just show up very different, and in a not a real healthy way. Very, as you would tell me, marshmallow, a bit of a marshmallow. And so, you tolerate a lot. And then all of a sudden, whenever you have your kids say something to you and you realize that, okay, wait a second, this is not the example I want to teach. And
what did they say?
Well, I mean, my kids are like, Mom, what are you doing? This isn't good and healthy for you. Like, you can't stay here in this. And your kids saying that to you?
That was in your marriage.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, okay. Because I think I would have stayed forever. So it was hard. It was a hard move. Right move. A hard move and the right move.
Yeah. And it's tough because everything had financial implications, and there were, issues of boundaries, and all of it was testing you, and continues, but you're getting stronger. I love watching that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was advice. You know how you pray and you ask for, oh God, I just want peace. I want confidence. So what happens? He gives you all the things that challenge that. It's not like I wake up one day and everything's peaceful. It's like, okay, I'm going to throw a whole lot of stuff at you. And then you have to learn to find the peace in the chaos, find the calm in the chaos. And it's, we think it's going to be easy, but that's not how it presents itself. So yeah, back to your point, it has been it has been a huge growth experience for me. Huge, huge.
Yeah, and yeah, she's right. I've done a little dating this year and I keep coming back to the fact that I have whoever I'm going out with is competing against me. They have to be more interesting and more fun than I am on my own. And my life is made better because of my dog and my cats. And we have so much fun when we're just home watching TV at night. So somebody's coming into my life, they've got to be more than that. And I haven't hit that yet. And I had this funny one. There was somebody recently was coming on very strong, very interested, and we had a talk on the phone one day, and I got off the phone, and I said to myself, "Geez, if I need somebody to annoy me, I could just call Julie." And Julie, my ex, she laughs every time I tell that story because we get on each other's nerves, and it's like that.
But you are the dearest of friends, That's
We are. We are. So, I'm definitely open to something, men, women, whatever. But well, remember that guy that I went out with last summer? And okay, everybody, I'm 64 years old now. It's just you can't stop the clock. It's okay. I'm living a great life. But when you're 64 and you're female, the pickings are kind of slim online. And I was looking at guys, and I had the range going as high as 67 because I don't want to change anybody's diapers, right? I want somebody who's as active as I am, an athlete, all those things. But there was someone, and he was 70 years old, and he was cyclist, really active, traveled, retired, and I'm not gonna say every detail because I don't wanna embarrass the poor guy, but he had a very, successful profession. He was retired from it. It's like every Jewish mother's dream that this would be who her Jewish daughter would get with, and but he was too old for me, and I just kept thinking, "I'm not gonna go with him, I'm not." But then, gosh, Michelle, remember that one guy with the wife beater he wrote to me online and told me that he loved my sensuous, mesmerizing eyes, and the guy looked like a serial killer, so I thought, "Okay, well, I will go out with the retired" we'll just say doctor. I'm not gonna be specific. So we're gonna go out with the doctor. And I go out with him, and it's an okay date. I mean, he's not bad looking, but he's 70, and at that time, I was still a mere 63, and, I'm thinking, "Well, he's nice. He's nice, he's not bad looking, very good conversation. Just see where it goes." So at the end of the date, he says, I'm gonna get with you. I'm gonna be going to see my kids next week, but I'll be back in a week, and I'll give you a call." I never heard from him, and I thought, "Oh, well, he didn't like me." But then a week later, I get a text from him that said, "The reason I didn't call you is I had a stroke and a heart attack, and I've had a triple bypass." And then
laughing because of
right.
that, but it's so funny. It was
I know,
exactly
and I'm like,
everything.
cross that one right off the list right immediately. Because I think that's where we are. I write about this in my next book, which we're gonna get to, but how I really want somebody for maybe 3 nights a week. Just some company, maybe do some trips together. The discovery that I am whole and happy was that was what this whole journey of a lifetime was. It pointed me to the place where it's like, "You're okay." And I did not have horrible relationships. I had rooms for improvement relationships that weren't, they weren't quite right. But to find out that in the end, it's that relationship with me that's my favorite one I've ever had. So yeah, I've got a little room for somebody, but yeah, the age thing is complicating that.
Yeah. Well, that's what's been so fun for me, like us being friends, especially during this transition time, watching you and how much I've learned from you in terms of how much you embrace life and you're doing fun things and you're challenging yourself. And I mean, you're really, really good at setting up boundaries, saying no to things that just aren't important to you anymore, right? I mean, just say no. And it's, I think I've gained a lot of just courage around you being a good example of what that looks like, and I'm just super grateful for
Thank you for that.
Where you call me for the help me be rational and not as emotional, I'm like, I want to live big and have a great relationship with myself, and that's, I think, part of our cool dynamic.
And for me, the struggle hasn't been relationships. It's been professionally. What am I going to do? And y'all saw that some in the previous year when I said, that's it. And I got myself a camping van and took the dog and hit the road. And I've got a book coming out about that next month. It's called Here Comes the Sun. And the subhead is The Hardest Thing About Middle Age is Growing Out of It. Okay. All right. And I'll read you the description. Fawn Germer did not climb Mount Everest, hike the Pacific Crest Trail, or eat, pray, love her way around the world. All she did was get a van and go for a really long ride with her dog. People do that all the time. It doesn't seem special. You wouldn't say it was extraordinary, but it was. Fawn woke up one day feeling like time was running out. Having 7 friends that die in their 50s and 60s will do that to you. She wondered how many years she had left. At 62, she could no longer deceive herself that she was middle-aged. She felt invisible, wrinkled, and vulnerable, adrift. How would she navigate the years that aren't middle-aged but still are not old? Somewhere out there, while traveling 10,000 miles with her magical dog, Sunny, she found answers. So that's the book. And I found out a few things that in writing it, this next part of my life is going back to mostly being a writer. I love my speaking, but the industry isn't what it was, and my speaking business isn't what it was because I'm older. And I always said that my job was not speaking or writing, it was marketing. And therein is the problem, is I can't do that anymore. And so I told Michelle I wanted to read this. So this is part of my book. And I'm in my van, I'm journaling, and this is a couple of months into my big trip, and I say, I make the mistake of looking at LinkedIn. I see posts about productivity, leadership, blah, blah, blah. Yuck. I am so far out of that realm now, and am in the most mentally healthy place I've ever been. Believe me, I understand all that. It's how I made my living. I was passionate about it. But right now, I cringe when I see the intensity of those posts. The self-promotion and humble bragging have always made my stomach churn. And when I needed to do it, I didn't do it well. At this point, I want no part of it. That's where I am, is that point of life where I've just decided what clicks with me and what doesn't. Even I live in a small town. I know everybody that you need to know in this town. There is a clique of popular people in the town, and I certainly was in that. And then at some point, I started to think, well, there's a lot of bullshit that goes on in that. Okay. And that I see people dropping names of who they're with from that clique, or it's kind of like when you're a nerd like I was in junior high and high school. And I was not popular in junior high and high school. And then I grew out of it. And then I looked back to my years in junior high and high school and realized us nerds had way more friends than the popular kids. When you think about it, just in terms of numbers, we were the popular kids and didn't know it because we were dorks. And I made a decision a couple of years ago to stop hanging out with people that I didn't like, or I liked a little. I love these people who are my dear friends, who I can tell anything, who would root for me no matter what I did or who I am or what my name is. And that's my transition in life right now, is that there's this wrestling with, certainly not with the people thing, because I have so many wonderful people in my life.
Yeah, you
So
do.
that's not the issue. But I'm wrestling with doing the things that make me professionally visible, but it makes my stomach churn.
Yeah.
I don't I don't want to do that mess anymore.
Guess what? I think that's what we're learning is we don't have to, right? I mean, same thing. We've been going through what really gets us excited and turns you on, and those things. It's like the game, the game. What got us to second base, where we had fun, we were successful. It just may not be what gets you to third and what gets you to home plate, right? It's you evolve. You have new interests. You get to reinvent yourself, growing on the wisdom that's come before. And I think that's where both of us have been. And I think that is also herein lies where we had been sort of stuck with, okay, well, how's this podcast fit? Because it's always been this sort of leadership, self-development. We were always talking, the target was these women in business, and that's great. But you and I are at very different phases in our life journeys and reinvention, that it sort of was like, well, we're not exactly talking to the same people based on where they are right now. They may have, they were this person for you, but they're not that person anymore. Same with me. And I think that's where it's sort of been like, okay, so what is this now? Who is this? Is it two friends that are yip yapping over, again?
But you know what you said that's interesting to me is that it's the target people, are looking at business people. Many of my closest friends are very high level business people. They're my girlfriends. And maybe we just need to have a girlfriends podcast, because it's people, it's the real people. Like, okay, who was our first guest on our first podcast? Do you remember? Shelley Broader.
Shelley. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Shelley Broader used to be one of the women in the Fortune 50 most powerful women. She was CEO of Chico's and FAS and was a president of Walmart. And when I was getting repairs done on my van and it was getting tight, and remember the supply chain shortages before, I needed some screws that were available at the Ram dealership down in Naples, and she lived in Naples. And I couldn't get them FedEx. They wouldn't FedEx them.
You had to physically pick them up. Yeah.
So I have to call Shelley, who's like this hugely important person, to say, hey, can you go get me these screws? And she's like, of course. So she runs and gets them and FedExes them to me. And those are the people I want with me in my heart. That's such a great story, because it's real. She didn't want anything other than me to have this little thing I needed.
And she wasn't showing up. I mean, Shelley's probably not the best example for this because of just who she is and her personality, but she wasn't showing up as, oh, I was a CEO of, she's
Right.
like just the day, there's a lot of people, and I know a lot of people that we've had in both of our circles who they have hung their hat on the prestige and they can't let go of it. And so I find that some of those people I get less and less interested in hanging out with, because please don't try to impress me. Like, that's not what's hitting with me right now. It's great. I will be your biggest cheerleader. It's wonderful, but I want to strip it down and have a real relationship. And, that's something that Shelley, just because of who she is as a human, period, she's a good example of someone who gets it right, that you want to keep in your circle. But there's a lot of them we don't want to keep in our circle.
Yeah, but what's interesting, so there's this group. For a time, I was calling it the cool table and then the tribe, but these are my friends from years ago at the Network of Executive Women. So Shelley would be in that group, and they're all
Powerhouses. They're all
ridiculously,
powerhouses.
they're all the highest performers. But I brought them together on calls in the middle of the pandemic, and these are people who worked so hard they didn't really have time to build girlfriend relationships. Many of them didn't. I mean, it was their family and their work. And so that pretense never was there. Everybody knew they were important and they just wanted close friends. And maybe the lesson from that is to find that with everybody. And it's the people who can't drop it that aren't worthy of our friendship.
That's just not, I mean, they'd be great people, but that's just not who I want. That's not who I want in my innermost circle.
I know. And I don't want to have discussions about the latest business book. I don't care anymore.
Well, I can see, but I care about that. Care about that sometimes, right? It's interesting to me because I'm still in that world and I'm still thinking businessy, but I don't necessarily need that for the podcast.
Yeah, I'm at a point where I just want positivity and joy.
Yeah.
And y'all know Michelle and I are complete opposites politically. So navigating this year has been interesting. And I was on the losing side of things. I've stopped reading the news pretty much and have made a decision that no matter what, I'm not wasting a day of my life. That I am going to find a way to cope with everything. And that is the path that I want to write about going forward, is that not about politics, but it's that shit happens in life all the time. And I have a friend who has a terrible disease, and it's likely to get worse. And she can't see the moment for what she has right now and use it, which is a coping strategy. Nobody wants a disease and nobody wants to be minimized. But if it's going to get worse, you better use that time right now. And that's what I'm looking at. Okay, 64. I'm assuming I'll probably check out sometime around 85. Although the longevity calculator told me I'm going to be 97. I don't believe that for a minute.
Oh, I could believe that.
I don't want that.
I don't know. You might.
But the fact is that the older you get, the less you're going to have. So I don't waste a minute of my life, whether it's good times or bad times. And that's my transition right now. That's what I want to write about. And that's what I want in terms of the things that I do for activities, but also the people that I'm with. Because if I'm not having fun and if I don't trust you all the way, I don't want to be around you.
Mm-hmm.
I just, there are no more games to be played at this point. And I heard that happened to a lot of women around menopause, but man, I'm telling you, my 60s, that was where it really hit me. Enough. I'm in a pretty happy place. Now, I do want to talk about this too, because you've been there for me through this. We had 2 hurricanes hit our area this year, and it was horrible. It was horrible. You had one come and just wipe out our coast, and there are so many people who I know who lost everything they own, and neighbors, people not far from me. And I suffered no physical damage to my home. And then 2 weeks later, the next hurricane blew in. So the first hurricane was a surge problem. The hurricane was 100 miles offshore, and it did unbelievable damage. And then the next hurricane came in at a Category 5. And this is new to me. I've lived in Florida most of my life. and have never seen any of this. And it has shaken me. It has shaken me. And Michelle, it's triggered me too. I think there have been reactions, even with all my friends too, that people are not themselves.
Very
And
PTSD. I mean, that's
yeah, and
that's
so
what
I
symptoms
finally,
exhibiting, right?
I thought, I'm going to get a little bit of therapy because I have not been in therapy for more than 25 years. Now, that does not count couples counseling people because we know I've had a bit of that, right? But individual, I really have good coping skills and I'm a good writer. And when I know what the questions are that they probably would ask, so I would ask a question and write my answers and give myself therapy. But I started to think this one's a little bigger than me. So I tracked down the last therapist I saw because she was pretty good. This was when I was 39 years old. And it was interesting because she was in Lutz, Florida at the time, and she has since moved to the Asheville, North Carolina area where they got hit by that first hurricane even harder than we did. And she's dealing with that. So that was interesting to have that all going on in the background. We're doing it by Zoom. And the reason I'm sharing this is that this has been some of the best time I've had in terms of self-development this year, and or probably in many years. And imagine my shock when my insurance actually covered it at 100% because I was only gonna
Who knew
I
that
was
was possible?
gonna do 3, maybe 5 at the most, right? Now it's like I'm covered at 100%. I will ride this pony as far as it's gonna go because and you know what's so neat is to see this therapist who, she was a young woman too when I saw her last, right? She's 4 years older than I am. And we're sitting there on the Zoom and I'm sure she's looking at me like, "Oh, wow, look at her." And I'm thinking, look at her. And because we've grown up. But to see her so much better, and she was great before. That's why I wanted to go back. But that 30 years, 25 years later, she's gotten that much better. She just looks at me and she says, "I feel like I'm really healing." And so I did want to share that because it's made a difference. And I I think we need to know when it's time to call in the troops for that.
It's been huge watching you through that because you've been reluctant, right? You're like, I got it. And there came that point where I know you were talking to me about it. Like, I'm thinking that it's time. But the funny thing about it was you're like, but I'm not wasting my time rehashing all that childhood stuff. I'm going to go back and remind her of all the notes. So I don't have to
Yeah.
talk about that anymore. So I can fast forward to what I need now. So it was just funny. You're
Oh,
like,
she appreciated that.
it was just, but it was great to witness this, like, this is how this is going to go down to get you back in. It was like your criteria to get back in. And then since worked all that out and started having results, it's been great. Cause I'll talk to you and it'll be like, well, I want to talk, but I can't, I'm kind of just drained. I had a really powerful session today and we'll talk later. And it's just been cool watching you through
Well,
this
it's neat.
process.
And I did before we started, I wrote her a 4-page single space summary of everything from the before, during, and after, because then she didn't have to pretend like she remembered everything. And um and then I didn't have to waste 5 sessions telling the story.
Yeah.
So here you go. She read it, she appreciated it, and we dove right in.
Yeah.
And I thought what was interesting, and I think that hurricane definitely rattled me, and that's what triggered some stuff. But a lot of what's come up is stuff from my childhood and, issues with my brother. And I said, I thought I was able to put all of that away. And I want to share this with people, not because I love the fact that I have to deal with this, but because she said something really important. I said, I thought I put it away because I was functioning so well. And she goes, it's like a refrigerator that's humming in the background. It's always humming. You just don't hear it. And I thought, Oh, that is so true. This is humming in the background, and I have to deal with it. But I feel like I'm moving forward with it. And
Oh,
so,
I see it. Yeah. I mean, I
yeah.
see it as a friend, right, that talks to you all the time in terms of how you then change some things, but it's how you cope and then how you think about it going forward.
Yeah, and that's only 3 sessions in. I just can't even imagine after 10.
Right?
I wonder if I'll do 10. Maybe, because 'cause they're paying for it. What do I have to lose?
Well, as long as you feel like it's right, a good, and you're getting a lot out of it, you will keep doing it, you know?
Yeah. Remember the days when nobody would even say they even got therapy? It's like this big secret, Or the people who have not gotten therapy are probably the people who all need it the most.
Wait, I know people haven't gotten therapy. They could use some therapy. I'm just saying. And yes, to validate what you just
Oh,
said, they
that
need
brought
to be
something to my mind. Is that who you're talking about? Michelle is also a connoisseur, so yeah. So I don't know. I'm in a good place. You're in a good place.
I'm so excited. It was so funny because, I do a vision board every year on my birthday where I like, what is this year standing for? And so it was funny because it's been a couple months now, but I had done mine and I was, putting everything on it. And it's like a whole process. Like, who am I? What's important to me? What didn't work? Well, it's not just throwing pictures on the board. It's like my therapy, my detox of debrief of how my year's gone. And I'd finished. And if you would have asked me what was important to me, I don't know maybe how I would have answered it. But when I got finished and I took my new one and I held it up against my old one, my last birthday, it was unbelievable because last year, everything was about self-love. It was about slowing down. It was about reconnecting with myself. It was just all this very calm, peaceful images and who was in my circle and what I needed in my life. And this year is like, let's go. And that is how I feel. I am so
Wow.
energized. And I wouldn't have realized because it's significantly different. The words, the imagery, everything is significantly different because I feel like what I learned really last year was appreciating those moments, like you were saying, appreciating the present, being mindful of it, acknowledging it. And then I have big dreams and big plans, and I'm putting together all the things I want to get there. So I am super excited about this year. And, it's not going to work out exactly like I think it is. And I'm cool with that. But I know ultimately what I'm focused on, and I'm fired up. I'm fired up and in a really good place.
And maybe we just needed some time to get to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel lost or confused anymore.
Yeah.
Or searching. Maybe that's the word I want to say. I don't feel like I'm searching anymore the same way.
I don't think I'm searching. I think I'm at a point where I'm processing it and wanting to use my writing to help others to process.
Yeah. It's kind of like that introspection.
Yeah.
Introspection that you can then share. And I think that's kind of how I felt. That's how I felt last year. This one's just much more aggressive. And this, again, my birth year, not necessarily 2025, but this year. And what do I want this year of my life to stand for?
God, it's going to be 2025. Doesn't it blow your mind when you think about Y2K, and it doesn't seem that long ago? Remember the airplanes were going to fall out of the sky?
Are you kidding me? I remember it well because I was working for Dell trying to plan all of our systems and infrastructure on what we were going to do. Now, of course, we have the aliens that are about to invade or whatever's going on with the UFO.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that's going to turn into a nothing burger. Hoping.
But yes, I remember Y2K very but I'm excited for us, Fawn. I'm glad we did this. I think, we still got some things to figure out for the podcast going forward.
But just to clear the air, I love you, Michelle.
I love you.
Yeah, we do. I can never make that thing. It's that way.
There you go.
Oh, whatever.
You got it.
And we love you people who listen, who've made it
Yes,
to
we
the end of
do.
this. So more's coming. We have no idea what it is or when. Hang with us and have a happy, healthy new year.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for joining the Hard Won Wisdom podcast with best-selling author Fawn Germer and corporate innovator Michelle Brigman. Join us weekly for career and life-changing conversations with some of today's most influential thought leaders, senior executives, and trailblazers who will share their mentoring wisdom. This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Leadership Network. Visit hardwonwisdom.com for more on this podcast and for links to Fawn and Michelle's web pages and social media. Also, be sure to rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort, and we'll see you next week.